Australian football has gone from the highs of the World Cup to the lows of the pitch invasion. So let's find out why Australian football is at war.
Australia won hearts and minds with their performances at the 2022 World Cup.
Can I stress as well how impressed I was with Australia? I actually put them to finish bottom of their group. They got out of their group. They almost got a victory against Argentina. So they should be using that to boost Australian football.
On December the 12th, however, the Australian Professional Leagues, the organisation that governs the men's and women's A-League divisions, announced that the next 3 editions of the 2 competitions' grand finals will be staged in Sydney, regardless of which clubs end up qualifying for those 6 fixtures. It's the result of an agreement between the APL and Destination NSW, the tourism arm of the New South Wales state government, and it represents a major and provocative break with a tradition. Fans, clubs, stakeholders and even players are furious about it.
So I've had a thought that football in England has a home. It is Wembley Stadium. So after all the games have finished in the competition, so for example the FA Cup, the League Cup, or even in the lower leagues you have the leagues and then you have the playoffs, the playoff finals are at Wembley. We have a home. And actually what it is it's something to look forward to. It's an aim. In rugby, after you finish the league, the playoffs, you get to Twickenham. In lawn bowls, outdoors, when you've finished your knockout competitions, the goal is to get to Leamington Spa, which is the area, the location they have the finals each year. And it is that aspirations to say, we're going to get to there.
Previously, whichever of the 2 finalists finished highest in the A-League regular season table got to host its final. This has meant that the men's grand final has been played in 4 different cities in the last 5 years, and 6 over the past decade. The APL, however, believes that fixing the location of finals in advance is beneficial. The desire is to create a spectacle and an occasion more equivalent to other major sports in Australia, such as the Australian Football League and the National Rugby League. But the backlash was instant, not just from fans, but also from those inside the game.
Please do let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And while you're down there, obviously hit the like button. But what is it about having the finals at the winning team or whoever finished top of the league? What does that mean to you? Why is that so important to you rather than having it at a certain location the same every year? Please do let me know to help me understand even more.
Multiple supporter groups issued statements. An APL board member, Anthony Pietro, tendered his resignation. A-League clubs Western United and Adelaide United spoke out in opposition, while 2 others, Wellington Phoenix and Melbourne Victory, expressed their preference for the old style of awarding the finals to the highest finishing club. Most embarrassingly, Adelaide United forward Craig Goodwin, who'd only just returned from Qatar with the national team and who was actually included in the promotional material for the finals announcement, revealed his opposition to the plan on social media.
Oh, that is that is awkward. I think there was a similar situation when the Conservatives did like one of their party broadcast things, and it had a disabled athlete in it, and afterwards he's like, I did not give you permission to have me in that. So it's a little bit like this, but there's a lot of people not happy about the situation. But are these people from the top clubs that are likely to win it? The bottom team's less likely to win. Do they have an opposition to this?
Remy Siemsen, the Sydney FC and Matildas forward, seconded Goodwin's opposition on Twitter. And the reasons for the opposition and anger are many. Firstly, location is a problem. The vast majority of A-League clubs are based in or near New South Wales. 3 are in adjacent Victoria. Only 4, Brisbane Roar, Perth Glory, Adelaide United and New Zealand's Wellington Phoenix, are from other regions. Now, context is important because New South Wales comprises an area 4 times the size of the United Kingdom. Australia as a whole is 32 times as large as the UK, and the potential cost of travel clearly worries many supporters.
I somewhat disagree and agree. So when we were traveling around Australia, we managed to get flights really, really cheap and pretty good value. Because obviously the size of Australia, flight is the main way to travel long distance, and it's the most convenient way, and I would like to think it's probably the cheapest way. So in that regards, these teams are traveling the distances. The fans should be traveling the distances anyway normally during normal league games. The only concern I think there should be is when there is a major event, prices go up, supply and demand. Like, for example, the AFL Grand Final, I expect the tickets went, sky high. And that's not... I can't say it's not right because that's just life. That's business, supply and demand. But as long as that didn't happen, or it didn't happen to a crazy extent, then is it really a problem? Is it really a problem? People are always going to have to travel, no matter what team's playing. For example, say a team in Perth is playing against a team in Adelaide. Well, at least half of the fans are going to have to travel if it was the old system anyway. So I'm not sure if that's a fair enough argument to make about travel being expensive and whatnot.
Disenfranchisement over Sydney-centric thinking is a common response. There are also concerns about the type of atmosphere that will be cultivated by a fixed Sydney final. More specifically, whether the sense of occasion imagined by the APL will be true to the culture of the game, and if the crowd inside the stadium will be representative of those who've been the lifeblood of Australian domestic football to this point.
I just want to... Look, I know it's a different world, looking at, for example, English football and Australian football. But if you look at the FA Cup final, or even the lower leagues, like I don't think it's called the Johnson's Paint Trophy, but whatever it is called now, that Southampton won years ago when we were in League 1 or 2, getting to the Wembley was incredible. It was an amazing occasion. Everyone's having fun. You have all the fireworks when players come on, and when the trophy's lifted and everything. Saying about a sense of occasion might not be there, I don't think is true. I don't think it's true because the build-up is for this event. What they say about non-fans, should I say, being in the stadium, I think that's the same with every sport, though, isn't it? And that's down to the stadium and the governing body to ensure that there's less corporate. It's like at the AFL Grand Final this year. There was complaints about how little amount of tickets were going to members of the clubs. So that is down to the league to deal with. But it happens, I'm sure it still happens in the normal system now. Corporate boxes and things like that get tickets.
Many are also protective of the old style of awarding finals to clubs, both for what they brought to heartland communities and for the partisan atmospheres that they typically created. Among those fans in opposition, there's a sense that something significant is being lost or taken away. When pressed on his opposition, Craig Goodwin, the national team player, said that a centralised Sydney final would lead to, quote, a bunch of neutrals in the stands. Samantha Lewis is a Sydney-based journalist who works for ABC and covered the Socceroos in Qatar. She was part of a generation of new fans awakened by the national side's qualification for the 2006 World Cup via a famous playoff win over Uruguay. She was hoping that Qatar 2022 would have a similar effect, but that now seems unlikely, she told The Athletic. Everything the Socceroos did was so galvanising for the entire community across the country. We all saw the scenes at Federation Square, and we saw how important that was for creating this sense of Australian football. Not just football scattered around Australia, but Australian football. So for this decision to happen, really the first major decision in the wake of the World Cup, it has the polar opposite effect. It's as if it's all about New South Wales, all about Sydney.
I get where people would be coming from. Oh, it's all about Sydney, but if there's a home of football, we have a home of football, and that's London. Now, I hate London. I think London is a horrible place, but that's where everything is based. Whether it's, St George's Park, which is the FA's HQ, Wembley Stadium, etc. That is just how it is. And you probably I'm sure you get the same in Paris, in Germany, in these other countries, there is the main hub for that country's football. And maybe Sydney is the place for it. The AFL certainly go along the line of that, don't they, in Melbourne?
It also explains why so many supporters have responded badly to the proposed location. Sydney is where two of the richest clubs are. It's where Football Australia has its headquarters. It's where the APL now has its headquarters too. The annual awards happen in Sydney as well, and basically everything in Australian football happens in Sydney. And so this folds into that larger narrative that the people controlling the game are making their decisions on behalf of that vested interest. Danny Townsend used to be the CEO of Sydney FC, and now he's running the APL. His and the APL's ambition, however, is to set a precedent. In a television interview, the day after the announcement, Townsend expressed his hope that other states will bid to host the grand final once Sydney's 3-year deal elapses.
I think that's a compromise, right? That's a compromise. I think what you've got to do, they're not going to change their minds, are they? But I think that's what you can do. You can have it there for 3 years, see how it goes, have it as like a trial almost. But then, as a compromise to the fans that like it the way it is now, have that bidding system where, for the next 3 years it could go to Perth, it could go to Adelaide, it could go to Melbourne, it could go over to Wellington. Do it like that, and I think that would be a little bit more inclusive, but still building up for the occasion of the final.
According to the Sydney Morning Herald, the agreement between the APL and Visit NSW is worth in the region of 15 million Australian dollars. That's not insignificant revenue for a sport that has historically lacked investment. And the expectation will also be to attract further commercial partnerships around the event itself. But that too requires context. In December 2021, the APL sold a 33.3% stake to Silver Lake, a technology investor that also owns a piece of back-to-back Premier League champions Manchester City, which valued the league at 425 million Australian dollars. That agreement came with the promise of developing fan experience and growth, and also supporting A-League women and redeveloping the A-League youth competition.
Now, at the end of the day, the world is about money. But as long as they do as they say they are going to do, then it's got to be a good thing. If you're going to improve the standard of Australian football, you have to invest the money. That's investing the money into the clubs, not into the big boys at the top and the corporates. It's investing money back into the clubs, the grassroots, the women, the kids. It's got to start at the bottom to improve. And in turn, improves media, more money goes into the clubs. And, let's be honest, players at the moment, they move away from Australia. At the moment, I think they go to Japan because there's more money in Japan. Because being a sportsman is a short career and you have to make as much as you can to survive. So, I can't blame players. So to keep them, you've got to pay them the worth to stay.
Which has been dormant since the pandemic. With that in mind, the agreement with Destination NSW appears scant consolation for upsetting so many of the game's stakeholders. In spite of the overwhelmingly negative response, the APL continues to stand by its decision. 24 hours after the announcement, a statement from its chair, Paul Lederer, reaffirmed the organisation's commitment to the Destination NSW partnership and promised to deliver, quote, a festival of finals football worthy of our game. Whether that becomes a reality remains to be seen.
Well, I said, please do let me know your thoughts. We see how it works in other countries with the FA Cup final, for example. You see what happens with the AFL Grand Final and the NRL Grand Final. It's exciting. It is an occasion. The fans have travelled for a major event. All I would say to people that don't agree with what they're doing is give it a chance. That's all I can say. Give it a chance. For me, I think it's odd to have the final of the team that finished at the top of the league. Because if they're in the final, is that not a slight advantage to that team being at their home ground? Maybe. It's an interesting one. And I think all you can do is see how it goes, because they're not going to change. The Australian Football Association are not going to change their minds. They've had this agreement. All you can do now is see how it goes. Let it run its course. If it is a complete flop, then by all means disagree, cause a stir, and try and make them change it. But until you've seen how it goes, it's a bit unfair to start rioting, if I'm honest, when you can only take them from their word. But if they're trying to make the game better, improve Australian football, you can only take their word for it until actions say differently. We'll see how it goes, but thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.